Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening's somewhat extraordinary Select Board meeting. It's a bit out of sequence. We have only two items that we're going to address tonight. But first of all, let me ask our people around the table to introduce themselves, starting with Stuart.
I'm Stuart Hurd, the town manager.
Jean Connor.
Justin Corcoran.
I'm Michael Keane, Vice Chair.
Jeannie Jenkins.
Good evening, I'm Donald Campbell.
Nancy Lowry, Secretary.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I also want to welcome Mr. Tim Scoggins, who is the chair of the Shaftesbury Select Board. Welcome here tonight. We have two items on the agenda. These can be dispatched fairly quickly. The first one,
Michael, do you want to do a Pledge of Allegiance tonight?
You're right, we should. Thank you. Would you lead us in the pledge? Thank you for that.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Donald. Appreciate that. Again, we have two items on the agenda. One was to be a discussion with the Bennington Rescue Squad concerning its petition to be on the ballot and a potential change in that position. I believe, Stuart, you were informed early today that the petition will stand.
Yes, the petition will stand. A majority of their board decided that since they were going to be on the ballot regardless, that they might as well go for the full amount.
Very good. You mentioned that Mr. Scoggins might have a word to say about that.
Yes, I think, Tim, why don't you come to the mic there? It's not really
Please,
about
again,
that,
just
but
introduce yourself and
Hi, I'm Tim Scoggins. I'm chairman of the Shaftesbury Select Board. And along with Bennington, we are struggling with how to deal with the Bennington Rescue Squad funding issues over this next year. I'll just say that what the town of Shaftesbury decided to do was to move their request from community appropriations into our budget. We did not feel like we could go as far as they wanted us to go this first year. They wanted $40,000 from Shaftesbury, and last year we gave the community appropriation was $2,000. We went to $7,500, which is nowhere near what they wanted, but it was triple what they gave us last year. And I think the important thing was that we moved it into the budget, and it becomes part of, in our opinion, the town's responsibility to provide rescue services for the area. When we discussed that, an idea that was suggested by Forrest and we felt was also important was that the community get involved in the Bennington Rescue Squad in understanding what they're doing and how they're doing it and how much it's costing and all that. And an idea that was floated by our town administrator, Dave Kiernan, was that we might want to seek a position on the Bennington Rescue Squad Board of Directors, which Shaftesbury is going to do. This is, like a lot of things that are happening here as we approach warning time, happening very quickly. But there is a member of our board, Tony Krulakowski, who's volunteered to seek that position. It's an application process. I believe Stuart also got the email indicating that they have a way that they elect their board of directors, and right now it means you apply for it. And so we're intending to do that. The deadline for that is this Friday, so it's happening very quickly. But I wanted to suggest that the Bennington Select Board at least consider doing a similar thing. I think community involvement is an important part of this, so we can look at how these costs are being incurred and whether or not there's anything that can do about them, if they're appropriate and all that. And also being involved in the community, we feel like from the Shaftesbury's point of view, if we decide that we need to spend $40,000, which is a penny on our tax rate, to fund just the rescue squad, we'll have demonstrated to our community that we're serious about this and we've done our due diligence and we're involved in the process, and it's not just somebody coming to us and say we want $40,000 and us agreeing to do that. I would urge Bennington to consider doing something like that, getting on the board or getting involved directly. And getting on the board means doing it before Friday. But I would really like to see Bennington involved because you're the big guys, and anything Shasberry does is going to be secondary to whatever you decide to do. So I would just wanted to make that suggestion and see if y'all wanted to consider putting one of your members or an appointee on the Bennington Rescue Squad Board of Directors. I think in the long term, it kind of makes sense to me if the Bennington Rescue Squad considered that as a standing position, that a representative, an appointed representative from the communities being served on that board. But at this point, the process is you make an application and the members of the Bennington Rescue Squad organization, whatever that is, they vote on the board of directors.
Great. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. What you say resonates a lot with me. I'd like to hear from members of the board.
I think it's a really good idea. Do you have any idea of the meeting schedule and the nuts and bolts of what it would entail?
I don't.
It's the third Wednesday of the month at 6 o'clock.
Now, I think what resonates with me most of all, including membership on the board, is that rescue squad, like fire and police, it's really all about public safety, and that at some point needs to be embraced by all of our towns. How we do that, I guess, over the coming year, depending upon the disposition of the vote on the ballot, we expect to have conversations with the rescue squad during the coming year, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Okay. If maybe there's a way you could find out about if we can put in an application, if there is interest on the select board to put in an application for membership on the board, could that be sort of an open membership for whoever it is that the board appoints?
I don't know.
Don't know.
I suspect that it's not. Like I say, I think it would be useful if that was the case. For example, Tony Krulikowski has volunteered to do that. We're expecting Tony Krulikowski to be there after he runs unopposed in March, but that's, a little bit of a risk we're taking by doing it that way. But I think given that we're just jumping into the process that they already had, I expect there's a name there. I expect, though, that if Bennington and Shasberry put names up, that I would think that the members of the Bennington Rescue Squad would welcome that and would see that as a positive, because one of the things that Forrest talked about a lot was getting the community involved in the funding decision that we have to make in the next year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Michael?
What is the, pardon me, what is the sense of my fellow board members on this?
Well, I'm wondering if there's any value in having a representative from the police department or the fire department or some other department that works closely with the rescue squad in that position. I feel like we can certainly get their budget numbers. If the purpose of being on the board is to be more able to be in the discussions about how they go forward and what the kinds of relationships they can build might be, I'm just thinking there might be some people who are better informed than the select board, not to say anything
That's
bad
a very
about
good
any of
point.
us, but.
Would the select board need to make a motion to make an application, depending?
Well, I think in a situation like this, because it's an organization that is seeking memberships, I can forward the email to you all that contains the application form. I can also forward it over to the police department to see, but I don't know that an employee of the town would want to serve on the squad at this point. Maybe sometime in the future they might, but it is rather short notice, and certainly I'm not interested in taking a position on the squad. I already serve on
I think
many
maybe
boards.
before we jump into actually actively seeking a board's position on the rescue squad, we should continue on with these discussions about how these funding gaps are going to be filled going forward. And I don't know what the total amount was they were asking for, from all the towns, but if they're asking $200,000 from us, $43,000 from Shasberry, I mean, you're $240,000
plus, to almost 250 with a full amount right there to start. I don't know what the other towns were asked for either. But, you start getting up into money like that, being allocated from the town to an agency, you almost wonder if, the town should be providing the services ourselves, as opposed to, you get my point.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money,
Right.
there's no question
It
about that.
it would certainly be the largest state, allocation outside of official town of
Yes.
Bennington government business that I've ever
Yeah.
been a part of.
I don't.
So it raises some questions.
And this is the first I'm hearing of this, so I'm trying to think through, is there a downside to having a select board member serve on the board? Would it be better if it was a cleaner relationship? I don't know, I'm just trying to play it out in my head, and I can't do it right now.
Well, I think you potentially run into the issue too. I mean, it was somebody's going to say this is a conflict. You have a board member on the board now that are advocating for the budget from the town level. We've seen that with other organizations for, with BBC, with you folks, when you guys step back and don't participate in votes and things because you have sat
That's
on
right.
the board.
And Tom already isn't participating.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't
Tom has a
necessarily know that it
conflict.
is a conflict. I'm not the first
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
person
either.
to sit here and point out conflicts of interest. I think some of that gets a little crazy, but you can see you read the tea leaves a little bit. Somebody will have a problem
Yeah.
with it, and we'll be dealing with it.
Yeah. Donald, you haven't spoken so far.
I don't think there's too much to talk about tonight. I think they've made their decision. We'll just put it to the voters and see what happens. I came tonight prepared to make a case for putting something in the budget, but I don't think we're going to I don't think we even need to talk about that really. I think your
that's
thoughts,
already
Tim,
off the table.
are wise, and I appreciate them. I don't know about everybody else. If I got on one more board, I'd have to get a divorce. And so I'm not sure I can be the person that would do that. But I think the idea of us working towards a higher level of communication so that when we talk to the rescue squad, which is in essence a municipal service, we have a deep understanding and trust of their budget and the situation they're in. So it seems like we got to an agreement at our last meeting, maybe the last two meetings, that we want to not have this service end up in crisis. And so we'll just stay vigilant and try to increase communication with them, I think.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to get a sense of the board, and personally, I think an application deadline of Friday this week with so many things going on is a bit abrupt anyway, and we don't have the time to think about it. We are in a situation where the rescue squad's petition is on the ballot. We just move ahead with that. So, end of discussion. All right. Tim, thank you. Anything else you wanted to mention?
Well, I guess I would just, as in my last gasp, say, maybe ask you to reconsider. I really don't see that there's a downside to it except, having to go to another meeting a night, and that's why I talked Tony into do it instead of me having to do it. But it just seems like getting into their boardroom so we can see all the numbers, all the figures, all of that is the way to evaluate this and to be able to say to the community, yeah, this is something we really have to do. And Shaftesbury's willing to do it, but if Bennington's not there, we're going to feel like we're, in the shadow, and it's I don't know that it's going to be nearly as fruitful as if Bennington was there and we were working with you, because you're going to be the biggest funder of it, and the biggest you're the biggest. So.
Can I just ask, does this feel like, I'm struggling with why we would be on this board when we aren't on the library board, for instance, or, there's some other boards that do receive a lot of money that are in the budget.
Traditionally, we have had a liaison to the library board.
That as an ex officio,
Yes.
and that has been a staff person, yes?
No, it's been a board member.
It's been a board member?
Yeah.
Okay.
And in most cases, Justin's right, the board member becomes an advocate for the agency,
Okay.
as opposed to an advocate for this board.
Is there one, do we have?
I don't know that we do.
Jim
right now.
Carroll
Is
is
Jim
here?
Carroll the liaison?
I
He could
believe
be.
Jim serves on that board.
Yeah.
I
could
didn't
be.
think so. Okay, maybe so.
No, I believe he does.
Okay.
No. Maybe the other point, since we're we don't have a lot of time between now and Friday, is to see if that board would accept an application at a later date, if we talked and thought through this a bit more.
Or would they make an exception considering the time crunch and allow a board member to come on board later, than their prescribed date?
Yeah, I couldn't speak to that, but my guess is that they're an organization, they're a legal nonprofit, and I would imagine that the rules governing their board of directors
Some
would
latitude.
require some due process to change, that they couldn't just say on a whim that we'll wait and see if Bennington applies.
I think we
But if
do.
a board member resigned midway through, they may have a bylaw that allows them to appoint someone.
But Jean, we may not want to be there officially. If we decide that we want to be on the board, we may want to be an ex officio, not a board member. So it feels like there is more discussion about why we would do it and what capacity.
I'm uncomfortable making a decision that we would do
Yeah.
it at this time.
Yeah.
I think
sorry.
we've capped that discussion tonight. Okay? So,
right.
thank you,
Thank
Tim,
you.
very much. Appreciate your time and your help, and your guidance. The second point is the signing of the annual town meeting warning.
I would need a motion to approve the warning as presented, and then I would circulate.
So
for
moved.
signature.
Second?
Okay? There is a motion and a second to approve the warning as presented. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Thank you.
Circulating for signature.
Our next select board meeting is the
Monday.
13th or the 14th?
I think it's the 13th. 13th.
13th, very well.
Yeah.
There'll
And
be
that-
more information
That
coming
meeting,
out
at
about
least
that.
tentatively, that meeting is the community meeting
Yes.
to talk about some of the results from the citizen survey. So I'll follow up with the chair and vice chair and see how we move into that one, to see how that goes.
All right. Do you anticipate advertising that at least a week before as a community meeting? Yeah.
Yes, I would anticipate that we would.
Okay, right. Just like the
I got to wait
community
for
to
the
come.
chair to return from vacation, so
Yeah.
we'll find out.
Now, we do want to make it more of an open forum meeting with a very brief agenda at the outset, and then open it up to, if you will, unscripted, whatever comments citizens wish to make, and whatever conversations citizens and the select board members want to have together. Sir?
I feel a little bit, not like I need to apologize, but I want to thank you for everyone for coming tonight. I realized that it was an off-cycle meeting, and I thought it was going to be more of a conversation. I realized there was a lot of setup for CAT TV. I realized it took an evening out of your time, and I'm sorry for that. But
Why would you be sorry?
well, I made a motion to do it, I think, or I pushed for an emergency meeting thinking we would have a robust discussion about this. And I feel a little bit like I've wasted everybody's time, but on we go.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
No problem.
Thank you.
There being nothing else, I believe, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mike and Cat TV and Jim Therian and others for being here.